When I was 12, I exclusively wanted to watch Ben Affleck movies. It's an incredibly specific thing for a child to demand. But Ben Affleck was the star of the 2003 superhero film Daredevil. Naturally, I was in love with him. My living room was home to a year-long event, the Ben Affleck Film Festival, where I was the only attendee. One day, while raiding my family's movie collection, I came across an unfamiliar box with Mr. Affleck's face on it. The title read, Chasing Amy. Immediately, I ran upstairs, took the box to my mom, and begged her to let me watch it. And after months of me annoying her about this guy, she begrudgingly acquiesced. Chasing Amy is an R-rated romantic comedy from 1997, written and directed by Kevin Smith. Its premise is simple. It's about a straight man who falls in love with a self-identified lesbian and their ensuing relationship. To spoil the plot for you, they become best friends, they fall in love through that deep bond, and their relationship implodes when he finds out he is not the only man she's ever been with. Rom-com gold. Now, that synopsis may horrify or intrigue some of you. It certainly had a divisive reaction from the LGBTQ community. But as a kid, this film rocks my world. Back then, my primary cultural references were 90s sitcom reruns and Star Wars. I felt like I was getting away with murder watching something so adult. Chasing Amy had everything that I wanted. The characters were comic book writers, they spoke in romantic monologues about the kind of love that only seemed to exist in movies, and there were openly queer people. And I didn't realize what a big deal that would be for me. Around this time, I entered junior high school. Young me did not have it particularly easy. While I was lucky to have a few people that I could call friends, I often felt isolated, but wasn't really sure why. In one violent incident in the 7th grade, a group of boys surrounded me as I waited for my mom to pick me up after school. I regarded these kids as my friends, so imagine my shock when they started pushing me, threatening me, and hurling words like dyke, queer, and faggot at me. I had never heard the word dyke before in my life. This wasn't the last time I'd encounter homophobia as an adolescent, but it was the first time I realized just how I was being othered. A harrowing knot formed in my gut that day, one that wouldn't leave until I was 19 and out to the world. See, it sucks when everyone else knows you're queer before you do, because then you don't have anything to protect yourself with. These young men weaponized my perceived sexuality against me. My internalized homophobia started on the car ride home from school that day, as I swallowed my sadness and raved to my mom about the great day that I had. And while I knew my mother would have done anything to protect me and would love me no matter what, I felt an obligation to shield her from my pain. So I said nothing. I said nothing until I was already done with high school. Without my mother in my corner, I didn't stand a fighting chance. Back then, there were virtually no consequences for homophobic bullying in Kansas. I had teachers who would openly disparage LGBTQ people in their attempts to gain access to marriage equality. I had no one I could talk to. But I did have this one movie. I had a movie where the gay and lesbian characters were good. They were not always respected by other people within the film, but they were intelligent and funny and out. They were able to live as their authentic selves. And you know what? The spirit of Chasing Amy kept me alive for years to come, despite the suicidal thoughts that began to permeate from the trauma I was continuously experiencing at school. No matter what I was dealing with, I had this one movie to bring me solace. I once kept this movie in my DVD player for a month. I would watch it at least once a day, every day, for 30 days. Now, to be fair, I didn't know that there were other gay movies. Thank you. So this film really was my access to the rest of the world. Yes, the homophobic epithets that were present in my everyday life were also featured in this movie, But those homophobic actions had consequences. And to an adolescent kid, Chasing Amy also provided a rare, precious depiction of a fluid kind of sexuality. Alyssa Jones, the film's true heroine, she loved who she loved on her own terms. Labels be damned. When I finally came out to my own mother, it was a total fluke. At 18, I was resigned to never come out publicly. I had shut down emotionally, I became lethargic, my grades had slipped, and I had a tendency to be really mean to people who didn't deserve it. But luckily, high school was now over. In my mother's mind, I could resume being a normal person again. I don't know how my mom got me to do this, but all I know is that over the course of a day together, we ended up talking about dating, college plans, and basically my disdain for my hometown. And I don't know how it happened, but all I know is that I ended up coming out to her, crying, in the middle of a Home Depot. Day one out of the closet, and I had already become a cliché. Now, what I clearly remember from that day is how I anxiously attempted to explain to her how I felt about my own sexuality through the language of Chasing Amy. I said to her, "Mom, do you remember Chasing Amy? I feel how Alyssa feels." The term pansexual wasn't yet in my family's vocabulary. I had to simplify. And this moment was a huge breakthrough for me. The weight that my 12-year-old self had borne alone was finally lifted. Since Chasing Amy's release, more LGBTQ films have been released. Moonlight, Call Me By Your Name, and Brokeback Mountain all found huge commercial and critical success. That being said, I shouldn't be able to name the only 3 gay movies you know in one sentence. When marginalized people talk about the need for representation in media, they are not being hyperbolic. Seeing yourself on screen endows you with the feeling of existing in the world, and seeing myself on screen gave me the strength to navigate that world. Nowadays, I'm a filmmaker. I make narrative and documentary films, mostly about gay stuff. Thank you. Telling joyful stories about my community has brought me a level of fulfillment I never previously dreamed possible. And because I can't seem to shake this topic, I'm now directing a project about the legacy of Chasing Amy as an LGBTQ film. It's by far the most dramatic way of saying thank you I could possibly think of. So I want to thank the people that made Chasing Amy, but really, I want to thank Ben Affleck. Thank you.